mixing it up, man. Look, we got a different podium.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is new and exciting here. This week, with 3 bills to combat human trafficking, as well as our work on NDAA, we continue to fulfill our promise made at the beginning of the year to keep America safe, here and abroad, every American. We made a promise. Whoops, did I step on it? Okay, anyway. Now if we could pay the light bills so that we could see. But our goal here is to restore the peace of mind and the security of everyone in this country. And fundamental to keeping this country safe is ensuring that our military men and women have the resources that they need. Really pleased today to have the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Mac Thornberry, who's going to talk more about the work in the committee, NDAA, National Defense Authorization. But this is a bill that is focused on modernizing our military equipment, restoring military readiness, and giving troops a pay raise, like those that I have the privilege of representing at Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane. We want Americans to be confident in their security and have the peace of mind knowing that they are safe and free. That peace of mind also continues at home, feeling safe in the communities all around this country. And that's why we have Representative Chris Smith joining us today to talk about the work to continue to combat human trafficking. Unfortunately, it's one that is seeping into communities all across this country, where we have people that are preying on some of our most vulnerable. And we're prepared to take on these threats at home and abroad. All Americans deserve to live in a country that puts their safety first, and we will continue to fulfill that promise.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and Mr. Speaker, Kevin, and Mr. Chairman. It's great to see you, and good morning. Just very briefly, we've given out a summary of the legislation, but back in 1997, I introduced the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. Many thought it was a solution in search of a problem. They had no idea of the magnitude that women, especially women and children, were being lured into trafficking, both sex and labor trafficking, around the world, including, sadly, in the United States. This legislation is bipartisan. Karen Bass is the chief Democrat co-sponsor, and our leadership has instructed us to reach out across the aisle to try to bring everyone on board. This is a comprehensive bill. It's named after Frederick Douglass. We celebrate his 200th anniversary of his birth in 2018. We worked with the Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives on a number of its provisions, particularly on the prevention side. This is, according to CBO, this is a $534 million authorization over 4 years. So it's significant. It is comprehensive. It's bipartisan. It's a whole-of-government approach, state, justice, Armed Services, it was referred to 8 committees, and I'm going to thank Kevin McCarthy and the Speaker, because as you all know, referrals of that kind very often means the bill doesn't get out of committee or it's very slow. This is on a fast track, and it will save lives. The CHIP report just came out, and I'll conclude on this. We have some good reforms in this for the Trafficking in Persons report that Secretary Tillerson just announced. To his everlasting credit, he put China on the list of egregious violators subject to potential sanctions, and that was a tough call politically, and he did it. So this legislation, again, I hope you take a good look at it. I know other things crowd out important issues like human rights, but I implore you to take a look at this one, because this will save lives, and I want to thank our leadership for their extraordinary leadership. There have been so many trafficking bills. We've never had this kind of interest at the leadership level than we do right now, and I thank them profoundly.
As Kathy mentioned, this week we'll have the Defense Authorization Bill on the floor. Sometimes I think when we see something repeatedly, we tend to take it for granted. And it is true that for 55 straight years, under Congresses of both parties and presidents of both parties, there has been an NDAA signed into law. This year, in committee, for example, there were 347 amendments filed. In the committee, 116 Democratic amendments were adopted and 115 Republican amendments were adopted, and the bill was reported out of committee by a vote of 60-1. This, as you know, includes everything from big strategic issues, such as really putting our foot on the accelerator when it comes to missile defense, dealing with North Korea, among other issues, to much smaller issues that are important, like helping spouses pay for licensing fees when they are forced to move from state to state, which gets to a lot of families. So there's a wide range of things. But I don't think any of us on the committee lose sight of the fact that the men and women who serve risk their lives, as we were reminded this week, even in training, as we were reminded a few weeks ago with the destroyer accident, even in routine operations. They are doing dangerous work. And our job is to help provide them with the best equipment, in the best shape, with the best training that our nation can provide. Unfortunately, we've seen accident rates go up as defense budgets have come down over the last several years. This bill makes a major step in turning that around. And in my view, we owe those who serve at least that much.
Again, this week we have major pieces of legislation coming forward, as you heard from Chris Smith, when it comes to stopping human trafficking. This happens in every district in this country. You have more than 20 million victims globally. We have already passed 13 anti-trafficking bills. We will add 3 more this week to a total of 16. These are bipartisan, but I want to thank Chris Smith for his leadership on this for decades and his continual work going forward. You just heard from Chairman Mac Thornberry. No matter where you feel philosophically, the number one goal within government is the protection of this country. We all know the challenges that our men and women face, the amount of cuts that have happened, and to be able to transform this military, to be able to continue to modernize and be able to protect us. This NDAA bill does it, and you watched in the manner in which he carried it out through his committee, from both sides of the aisle, from 60 to 1, from the number of amendments. And then we'll have more than 200 amendments to deal with on the floor as we go through this week. So we'll have a lot of debate this week on the floor. As I do many times in the past, I continue to want to give metrics of where we are. I believe in measuring, knowing where we want to get to. So as I continue to analyze the data for the first portion of the new Congress, I take to measure in the past. This goes from H.W. Bush administration forward for their first time in Congress. The number of bills that have passed out of the House by June 30th, the average is 176. We are at 269. We will continue to do our work to put people back to work in America. The bills that have been in, I've got one other one, and where did I put it here? Did I leave it? My main one here. Well,
I think somebody snagged it.
Somebody stole it. Must have been from the Senate. Because it was a number of bills stuck in the Senate.
That's what we were going to show. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, there it is. There it is. There it is.
there goes that button. The number of bills that are stalled in the Senate as of June 30th, 226. We will continue to do our work here, and we're hopeful that the Senate continues to do their work as we move forward. But as soon as the Senate continues to pass those bills out of the Senate, either directly to the President or back into conference, we'll get that work done as well.
And I'll just add, it would be nice to see the Senate minority help move personnel through so that the administration can be populated. I think we're at, 10% of the nominations have been placed right now, as compared to 90% of nominations being in place at this time in the Obama administration. So it's a high time they get this done. First, what you saw with these bills, you know what it's about? It's about keeping Americans safe. When people see what's going on in the world, like the recent series of attacks in England, it renews those worries about something terrible happening in your own backyard. Every day we talk about how important it is that we have the resolve to protect our country and to confront the threats that we have overseas and right here at home. Our actions need to match our resolve. With this defense bill, we are working to make sure that our armed forces have the tools and the resources that they need to defeat terror. This is the next step in keeping our promise to rebuild our military for the 21st century and the threats that it encapsulates. It includes support for military families and, honestly, a really well-deserved pay raise for our troops. with the trafficking bills. And I, too, want to thank Chris Smith for his just tireless determination to combat human trafficking. With these trafficking bills, we want law enforcement to have every possible resource at their disposal to fight this growing problem. That means protecting victims, who really are and should be the focus of this work. And it also means going after the perpetrators to the fullest extent. I want to note that these are all ideas with broad bipartisan support. The Republicans and the Democrats on these committees, they are the ones who work closely together on these issues. The defense bill, of course, has a decades-long bipartisan tradition. And I know that this is not the kind of work that attracts most of the attention around here, but we think this work is vital. And so we continue to act on our agenda, and we continue to come together for the safety and security of the American people. Does anybody have any questions? All in one question? That's kind of a lot. Well, let me just say this. We're still having the listening sessions with our members on the budget. Diane Black has done a tremendous job at the Budget Committee, getting the budget whipped into shape, finding out where that consensus is. The consensus that she's been able to reach with Chairman Thornberry, with the appropriators, is why the Appropriations Committee is well on its way to getting their bills out of the subcommittee into the full committee. So we're well on our way on appropriations. We're having the kind of listen. What's that?
They'll have them all done this week.
Yeah, I think the subcommittees will be all done this week. The full committee will be done. Really? That's pretty good. Yeah, full committee will be done this week. So that's really good. I mean, by the way, you've heard me say, first year of a new presidency, you always have a delayed budget process. So getting the appropriations process up and running that quickly, once we reached a number, which was fairly recent, was very, very important. So what we're having is the conversations with our members about the budget resolution. As you know, we're operating under a current budget resolution with the health care bill, which we're waiting for our friends in the Senate to act on. Then we need to have a budget resolution in place for our fall agenda, like tax reform and the rest. Chad.
That said, and I know the leader also talked about these metrics and things. You haven't moved a budget yet here, but that said, it sounds like, on one hand, when we hear the metrics that you guys have done so much that maybe you don't have to stick around in August like the Senate is going to.
Well, obviously, we're far ahead of the pace because the House, as you know, institutionally can move a lot faster than the Senate. The House also does not have to deal with personnel, with ambassadors and assistant secretaries and all the rest, or the Supreme Court. So we don't have those challenges that they have. We are in active conversations as a team to discuss what our schedule is going to be. But right now, we plan on hitting our mark, getting our work done, and making sure that we fulfill all of our responsibilities. And we'll do whatever it takes to get it done. Deirdre.
Speaker Ryan, do you have any concerns now that we know that the President's son went ahead and scheduled a meeting with Russian government officials or Russian government representatives after being explicitly told that the information was coming from the Russian government?
Yeah.
Well,
First, let me say this. It is absolutely unacceptable that Russia or any other country, but Russia, meddle in our elections. That's just period right there. Second, we have a special counsel that's doing an investigation over the Justice Department. We have an investigation here in the House. We have an investigation in the Senate. I think it's very important that these professionals in these committees do their jobs so that we can get to the bottom of all of this. Casey.
Mr. Speaker, would you accept a meeting with a representative?
I'm not going to go into hypotheticals.
Would you accept a meeting with somebody who said, I have information from a foreign adversary that will help you beat
Yeah.
your campaign opponent?
Look, I'm not going to go into hypotheticals only because I think it's important that we get to the bottom of all of this. As you all know, I supported Bob Mueller being appointed special counsel, and I think we need to let him and his team and our investigators here do their jobs and follow these leads wherever they may lay and follow wherever they may go and follow the facts.
last question.
Rachel.
The White House is saying openly now that they're trying to capitalize on the delay of the sanctions, the Russia sanctions bill, here in the House to try to water it down, make it more likable to themselves in terms of like the waivers, making waivers easier to get and lifting sanctions on Russia. Are you willing to commit at this point that those teeth are going to remain?
Yeah. As you know me on this issue, I'm a Russia hawk. I believe in strong, bold Russian sanctions. We want to move this Russia sanctions bill. As you know, there's a constitutional issue. We call this blue slip. Right now, we don't have unanimous consent with our friends on the other side of the aisle to move that back to the Senate. It's procedural concern they have. We've never moved a bill on blue slip issues in a partisan way. I want to keep that bipartisan. So right now we have a procedural issue. We're working with our friends on the other side of the aisle to make sure that the constitutional error in this bill is protected. There are some policy issues with respect to making sure that we don't actually inadvertently help Russian oligarchs and oil firms. But aside from those issues, we want to get this done and get this fixed and get this moving as quickly as possible. Thank you.